On today's big story, yet more fallout from the Diamond Princess cruise ship in Japan. Singapore Airlines ramps up its efforts to combat COVID-19. Plus, we shine a spotlight on those spreading goodwill amid the ongoing crisis. Good evening, it's the end of the week and you're watching The Big Story, where we will discuss the hottest topics of the day. I'm Dylan Ang, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. Now, 5 Singaporeans quarantined aboard the Diamond Princess cruise ship off Yokohama, Japan have been allowed to disembark. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs said today that these 5 passengers have decided to remain in Japan for another 14 days before returning to Singapore as an additional precaution. Elsewhere, South Korea has designated 2 cities as special care zones as the number of confirmed cases spike to 156. The cities are Daegu and neighbouring Cheongdo County. Both will receive military medical aid and get temporary isolation facilities. In what's been described as an unprecedented crisis, South Korea now has the 3rd most coronavirus cases in the world, behind China and those affected on Diamond Princess cruise ship. So far, more than 600 passengers on board the vessel have tested positive for COVID-19. As of Wednesday, around 440 passengers have been allowed to leave the ship as quarantine operations began to wind down. This comes amidst growing criticism against the Japanese health authorities for their handling of the situation. Now, to tell us more about what's going on there, we have Japan correspondent Walter Sim. Hi, Walter.
Hi, thanks for
Now,
having
Walter,
me.
Japanese officials have come under fire recently for their handling of the outbreak. Has their reputation of being efficient taken a hit?
Well, I think there definitely will be some impact, especially given the rising numbers of cases. So as of right now, the latest is that there are 634 confirmed cases on board the Diamond Princess cruise ship, as well as another 103 cases on land. So the new cases today actually pushed the domestic cases beyond the 100 mark. So support for Prime Minister Abe's cabinet has also fallen in 3 separate media polls last weekend. And right now in the Diet, as Japan's parliament is called, we see cabinet ministers from Environment Minister Shinjiro Koizumi and even Prime Minister Shinzo Abe himself who are being accused of skipping coronavirus task force meetings to attend their own private functions. So there is this there is mounting criticism of whether the government is actually taking this crisis seriously enough. So, but that's not to say that Japan is not trying its best to say do contact tracing and whatnot. But there have also been a handful of cases where the root of infection cannot be found, including one sudden case that appeared in Fukuoka yesterday. And well, the rising number of cases on the ship is evident as well, and not just foreign health authorities like the CDC in America. Japanese infectious disease experts have also said that the zoning and protection measures are not enough, but Japan maintains that it has done what it could to tackle the crisis.
Now, Walter, on that note, what are some of the other repercussions for Japan as a whole?
Well, of course, tourism has taken a very hard knock, and this is fast turning into what I think is a huge PR nightmare for the Abe administration. So Japan wants to attract 40 million visitors to Japan this year, given that in line with the Tokyo Olympics, of course, but arrivals have plunged to the point where Kyoto and Arashiyama, which is perpetually crowded, has actually launched a tourism campaign to try to woo people back. And you are probably familiar with Hokkaido's Shiroi Koibito white chocolate biscuits. It's quite it's quite a famous souvenir. So the makers of that of those biscuits have actually stopped production because to cut losses because of dwindling sales. And of course there are further economic repercussions as well. So last quarter, Japan's economy already shrank 6.3%, and that is without this ongoing coronavirus outbreak.
Now, Walter, this is interesting. Now, Japan had 0 cases of SARS back in 2003. Now, could their response now be down to the authorities' lack of experience, when dealing with epidemics such as the coronavirus?
I think definitely yes, and a lot of Japanese experts have also actually cited this fact to show how Japan is grossly underprepared, unlike other neighboring countries like South Korea, actually, which founded its own version of the US CDC after SARS in 2003.
Mm.
So, because of that, Japan does not have this coordinated, centralized health body for its response, which is pretty much left to government bureaucrats who then discuss what is the best way to react with its own panel of medical experts.
Mm.
So, and because of this unpreparedness, only as recently as last week, Japan only had the capacity to test 300 samples a day, which pretty much astounded me because I think that is very little.
Yeah.
And this is because the testing was only done at public institutions, but as of this week, it has vastly increased its capacity by as much as tenfold to more than 3,000 samples a day, because it has brought on board universities and private companies as well. So I think Japan is fine-tuning its response along the way as unfortunately as the crisis develops and
Mm.
escalates.
Mm. Now, of course, the Tokyo Olympics scheduled for July. What do you think? I mean, what are the chances of the games going on as planned?
Well, Tokyo definitely wants the games to go on,
Mm.
and it's on that note that Tokyo has continued preparations as planned. But as of now, I think it's still too early to say
Mm.
whether the games will go on or not, because well, the Olympics are still 5 months away.
Mm.
Things can easily change for the better, but things can easily change for the worse as well. So I do think that an assessment would be clearer in maybe April or May, but really I do think that authorities should start having a plan B right now just in case.
Mm. Right, I guess you have to wait and see. Thank you so much for your insight, Walter. That was, of course,
Thanks
Japan
for having me.
correspondent Walter Sim telling us more about the situation over there. Now, to keep up to date with all the latest developments, do visit our website, straitstimes.com. Now, moving on and back home to Singapore, the number of confirmed cases of the coronavirus stands at 85. 3 more patients were discharged yesterday, and this takes the total number of recovered patients to 37. But 4 are in critical condition. Now, meanwhile, $112 million have been set aside in the Singapore budget to help the aviation industry come to a softer landing as businesses are hit by the coronavirus. Now, earlier today, Transport Minister Khaw Boon Wan and Senior Minister of State for Transport Lam Pin Min paid a visit to the crown jewel of Singapore Aviation, Singapore Airlines, to see how it was coping with the outbreak. Here's multimedia journalist Renee Poh with more.
When it comes to the safety of its passengers and crew, Singapore Airlines clearly doesn't mess around. I'm here today on board one of its A350 aircraft to see the additional cleaning measures our national carrier has put in place in light of the coronavirus outbreak. Staff from SET's aircraft interior cleaning normally use disinfectant to wipe down these surfaces such as tray tables, headsets, and in-flight entertainment screens. Now, an extra set of measures have been put in place for flights arriving from mainland China. This includes disinfectant fogging, where all surfaces, including seats, floors, and even the overhead bins are sprayed.
And we're quite heartened to see that both SIA and Scoot have actually increased their cleaning and sanitization regime on top of what they normally do. And this is especially so for those flights that are flying from China. We are also aware that cleanliness is something that actually will be on top of the mind of many passengers. And by implementing some of these additional measures, it's very reassuring to travelers and also reassuring to the crew who are flying on these routes as well.
Apart from cleaning the aircraft thoroughly, SIA has also made changes to its in-flight services to minimize unnecessary contact between passengers and the cabin crew. For instance, preset desserts will replace ice cream for passengers, and the hot towel service will be replaced with preset wet towelettes.
We have made adjustments to our cabin services to reduce the risk of the transmissions. So some of the measures that we have taken is we remove the insert literatures for the China flights. So we only leave the essential ones like the safety leaflets and the air sickness bag. All the other magazines like the Christmas magazines and the Sky Shop catalogue are being removed. But we do have e-copies of this available for passengers to download before the flight.
SIA said these enhanced cleaning measures are in line with international guidelines. And with these rigorous procedures in place, we can be fully assured that Singapore Airlines will always remain a great way to fly. Renee Poe for The Straits Times.
Now, from doctors and nurses to police officers, these are the frontline fighters battling the coronavirus for Singapore. You can now show your support for them by writing a note of thanks on the Straits Times tribute wall. The tributes have been pouring in, so join the rest of Singapore in posting your message at the link below. Now, Singaporeans continue to look for practical ways to step up during the coronavirus outbreak, either by raising funds, using tech tools to distribute masks, or packing food packs for needy households. Let's find out more with Straits Times live journalist Anjali Raguraman. Hi, Anjali.
Hi, Dylan.
Now, Anjali, give us some examples of these ground-up initiatives. I understand that you've spoken to a few organizations.
Yeah, so let's start with Food from the Heart. It's an organization that's been around since 2003, but in recent weeks, they have had to resort to putting out call for volunteers for their food packing, because they typically put together around 6,500 packs of food a month. But in the wake of DOS Gone Orange, they saw a sharp dip in the number of volunteers. So they put out a call on Facebook, and in the past few weeks they've managed to get ample numbers of people, and everyone from housewives to civil servants to like the Team Nila volunteers from Sports Singapore to come down and help with packing for people who are desperately in need of food on the regular. So
now, Anjali, Singapore. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Please go on.
No, there's another one. So there's also this organization called Refresh Flowers. So typically they take wedding bouquets and repurpose them for hospice care workers. But in recent weeks, they had this drive after Valentine's Day where they got bouquets that people weren't going to use anymore, and they repurposed them for frontline healthcare workers at Tan Tock Seng Hospital and Ipswich. Yeah.
Wow. Now, Anjali, Singapore has been battling this outbreak for about a month now. Is there a fear that the response to these efforts will be short-lived? And if so, how can organizations plan for more long-term support?
Okay, so in the case of Food from the Heart again, they are anticipating that, everyone is anticipating that this crisis is going to last for a few more months. So they agree that they're going to feel the strain in the second quarter as well, because people are going to take a wait-and-see approach, and they're quite limited in how they can put out a call via schools and stuff for people to donate. But they're hoping that people will still come forward and volunteer, as well as, I think the best way to do it would be to follow them on Facebook at Food from the Heart, because that's where they put out the calls usually. Yeah.
Now, speaking of volunteering, for our viewers looking to do their part, what are the best things or ways that they can contribute?
Okay, actually, there's this thing called the Majority Trust. It's a homegrown philanthropic organization that they've noticed that people are stepping up, regular everyday Singaporeans are stepping up, and they want to help fund these efforts. So those who want to apply for their efforts for the frontline healthcare workers, for instance, can apply via Majority SG/SG Strong, and they'll receive funding of up to $5,000 per project, or something that covers 80% of their project costs. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Anjali. That was, of course, Straits Times live journalist Anjali Raguraman. Now, to read her full story, do visit our website. Now, and those were the top stories for today. Keep up to date with news in Singapore and around the world at straitstimes.com. And I'm Dylan Ang. See you next Monday for more stories on The Big Story. Have a great week.